God created marriage. So who better to trust with how things should work than the one who created it instead of... Hello everyone and welcome to Gems and Pearls with Love. My name is Caitlin Clarice. To all who are new here, welcome. On this channel I talk about a biblical womanhood. That would be the big headline. I talk about being a godly wife, being a godly mother, homemaking, and biblical femininity and the like. So if you just stumbled up on this video and that type of content is what you are interested in, I would love if you would hit the subscribe button and join me here on this channel. I did notice that there is quite a few new subscribers to this channel, so welcome all of you. I appreciate you all so very much for subscribing and joining me here on this journey of biblical womanhood. Today we're going to be talking about what biblical submission is and what it's not, and yeah, let's get into it. So if we are going to get in the first dictionary term of submission, it is to submit is to yield to another's will or authority. I want to start off by saying that everybody submits. Male or female, everybody submits. We submit to a police officer when they have their lights on behind us, telling us that we need to pull over. At least most likely we're going to submit, because otherwise it doesn't go so well, as you already know. And we submit to government authority. We submit to, if you have a job or ever had a job at some point, you submit to your boss, your supervisor. Children submit to parents. So in some way, some form, we all submit. This is not something that is just only for wives. This is something that we do in general when we talk about submission as a whole. If you were to think about a company and how a company is run, there needs to be somebody that's the leader, somebody that is in some sort of, authority position of some sort, because if not, then there's going to be chaos. Like, the company cannot run. Imagine there's no one that has that position of a leader or a manager or something, and you have a bunch of strong-willed people who have their opinions and they think that their way is right. As much as you want to say, oh, we can talk it out, talk it through, you're going to be talking it through all night and sometimes still not come to conclusion, especially if you have two strong-willed people who truly believe that their way is right. You need that one person that is like, okay, it's up to you. That one boss, that one manager that's going to say, okay guys, thank you, I've heard your points and you guys have lovely ideas, but this is what I'm going to go with. You need to have that. That is how we have structure and order in a workplace. And I truly believe that headship and submission is God's way of having structure and order in marriage and in the home. Now, when it comes to biblical submission in marriage, I know that there's a lot of anger and resentment and hate and a lot thrown and negativity thrown at this word. And I truly believe that there's a part of the reason for that is because there's a lack of understanding on what it actually is to look like, because there are people that are out there talking about submission in a way that is not necessarily intended biblically. And then there is also just the fight that we all, of course, the fight that we all have as believers, as people who are still in our fleshly form, that we just don't want to conform to God's ways. We don't want to do things God's ways. We don't want to submit to His ways. And so there's always going to be that kind of fight. So that's what I believe, why there's always this, submission being seen as this bad word. I've heard it said that, submission is a result of the fall. It was like the curse. It was a curse for the woman to submit to her husband. And, now we're just no longer under that curse anymore. And so therefore we don't need to do this like this. Well, I would very much disagree to that. to be honest, if you just even read Genesis and you read the creation, the fact that the man was made first, the fact that the God saw that the man needed a helper, and that's why that's what led to the creation of the woman. And by the way, not to say that means that we were some sort of afterthought. I believe we were just as important as the female sex is just as important as the male sex. It's not anything to do with our worth. It's not anything to do with our value, which we will get into. But yeah, when the woman was made, it was brought to Adam, and he named her. Like, to be honest, it's hard not to see, like, when you read it in its context, it's hard not to see that this whole leadership thing was there from the beginning. Like, even though it was Eve that first ate the fruit before she gave it to her husband, we still know that the scripture says that sin came in the world by a man, not by the couple, not by the woman, but by the man, because he was supposed to be a leader. What did happen though, as a resort to the fall, what was the curse, is that what was supposed to be so natural and so beautiful became tainted and became difficult, because now we have a desire to control our husbands, but yes, though he was still, rule over us. So therefore, that's what made it ugly. That's what happened during the curse. It was supposed to be beautiful. It was like a beautiful, lovely painting, and then it got, like, you took like some red paint and splashed all over it. It became a problem. It became something that was something to fight against as a result of the fall. So, like I was saying earlier, I truly believe the reason why a lot of people fight against submission is because they have the wrong image of submission. So let's talk about what submission is not. So submission is not you becoming this thoughtless robot that that shouldn't be speaking, it has no right to have any opinion, it cannot have their own thoughts and their own opinion. That is not submission. Submission is not just some kinky thing that people do in the bedroom. Submission is not becoming a doormat where you are to be used and abused and stepped all over. It is not, I'm going to say this very clearly. Submission is not you being okay with being abused at all. You're not supposed to be abused by your husband, by anybody. So being submitting to your husband does not mean that you are submitting to and saying that you are okay with being abused. Okay? So I just want to get that out there, because it's unfortunate that the word submitting, like the whole thought of submitting to your husband, that concept is always related and put back to abuse. It does not mean that you're abused. You're not supposed to be abused. Matter of fact, God commands the husbands to love their wives the way that Christ loved the church, that he was willing to literally lay down his life and die. Your husband is supposed to be willing to die for you. So when he's even leading and making decisions, it is supposed to be for the good of you and your family. Not even because I want it this way, but because this is what I believe it is good for you and for the family. He's supposed to love you and treasure you. There's literally scriptures where the husband is told that his prayers are not answered because of the way he's treating his wife. There is no way in biblical submission that it is okay to be abused, or that submission is saying, or that okays abuse in any shape or form. Submission is not supposed to be forced on you. Your husband is not supposed to force you to submit. It's something that you do. You place yourself under the authority. It's a choice that you make. It is not something to be forced. Now, last but not least, and very important, submitting to your husband does not mean that you are of less value, that you are less of a person, that your husband is smarter or wiser or anything like that. It does not mean that at all. The sun, Yeshua, Jesus Christ, he submitted to the Father's will. But yet still, they are one. They are equal. And so therefore, it is not a thing of what's value higher, or like when we think about the Father and Jesus, we don't think one is lower and one's higher. We just know that they are one. But yes, though, he submitted to his Father's will. Like literally, before he got crucified, he was in such distress of what was going to take place and what was going to happen that he sweat blood. That's how much distress that Jesus was under. And he said, if there's any other way, God, if there's some other way, paraphrasing here, by the way, that this can happen without me having to go through this, please let us do that way. But at the end of the day, let your will be done. Right? That's submission. He laid his life down. The Father didn't take his life. We didn't take his life. He laid his life down. He chose to submit to the Father's will. And likewise, we submit to our husband. Again, doesn't mean that we are of any less value. It is just based on position and the roles that God has called us to in those positions. Now, let's talk about what submission is. Submission is you choosing, remember, not force, you choosing to submit to your husband. Not to your boyfriend, not to your fiance. I'm sure you're going to show them respect. After all, you definitely want to show yourself as a respectful lady, right? But you are not obligated to submit to anyone that is not your husband. Submitting to your husband is trusting the one who made marriage to know how it is best going to function. Imagine buying a product and taking the manufacturer's manual, right? Instructions, and throwing it out and deciding that you know how best to operate this product better than the one who made it. That probably and very likely is not going to go very well. That would be silly, right? And then imagine now you do that and then you get upset because you decided to put water in this electrical thing and then now it's fried and it's not working properly. Either it's not working at all or it's just not working properly, and then you're going to be mad at the manufacturer. Why would you be mad at the manufacturer? You decided not to go by the instructions that he gave you. He knows how this product is supposed to function. He's the one that created it. So in the same way how we should trust that the person who made it to know, to read this manual and know, okay, so this is, so I shouldn't put water in it. And if I do this, it's going to not last as long. And if I do this, it's not going to work to the full capacity. It's the same thing with marriage. God created marriage. So who better to trust with how things should work than the one who created it, instead of what we feel like we can throw in there and, you know, we don't know better. We don't know better than the one who created it. So that being said, the one who created marriage has in his word, that's written by man, yes, but inspired by God, not once, not even twice, minimum 3 times. I don't even know if it's even more than that, but minimum 3 times I can show you guys, okay? It's written for the wife to submit to her husband. It is shown where that the husband is the head of the wife. So therefore, if we're going to trust the one who created marriage, we cannot ignore that. We cannot add in our own ideas of that. And if you want to throw at me Ephesians 5:21 and say, oh, it says submit one to another, you know what? Then when it comes to mutual submission, I'm going to have to make that a video all on its own. We'll talk about that on its own. But no, I do not believe that mutual submission in marriage. The husband is not told to submit to his wife. Is there somewhere besides you know, wanting to take Ephesians 5:21 and say to me, oh, this means that the husband is supposed to submit to the wife too? Show me at least one other place in scripture where the Bible tells the husband to submit to his wife, and then we'll talk about that. But anyways, yeah, so I'm going to get into that in another video. I'm not going to touch on mutual submission right here, right yet. So yeah, what else does submission mean? Submission is trusting your husband. Trusting your husband, and not even in a way where I mean to like trust that he's going to always make the best decisions. No, because he's human. And just like me and you, we're imperfect and we're flawed, and he may make bad decisions and bad judgment calls. However, it is trusting that he has your best interest at heart. It's trusting that he's not like this guy that's just super evil and wants to just destroy your life and just make everything horrible and miserable for you. So that's why he's going to be doing this. And that's why he's making these decisions, because he just hates you. That's why it's important. And this is to the single ladies. It's important for you to pick a man that you trust to lead you. Pick a man that you believe truly loves you and will lead you in the right direction. Now, ultimately, it is trusting God. It is trusting God. God says in his word that all things work together for the good. Everything. Oh, sorry. Why can't I not speak here? All things work together for good for those who love the Lord and be called according to his purpose. All things will work out for good. He didn't even say some. All things will work out to good. So that means even the bad, he will somehow make it work out for good. So it's trusting God that, you know what, if this is a decision that, or this is the direction that my husband wants us to go in, I think it's bad. God, you know what? After I already said my opinion and I already shared and let him know, hey, this is what I think and stuff like that. And he says, you know what? Yeah, babe, I hear you out, but I really truly believe this is what's right. And we decide we're going to submit and respect his decision. If it's the wrong decision and something goes wrong, that ultimately everything will work out. I don't need to be fearful. Today's worries are enough for today. I can just trust God that, God, you're going to work things out. I'm going to pray and say, Lord, if he's making the wrong move, I pray you'll intercede. But even if you do not intercede, you have a reason for not interceding, right? Trust that you are obeying God's word by you submitting to your husband and respecting him and honoring him. So just trust him now to do his part. Submission also has the wonderful ability to even soften the heart of an unbelieving husband or disobedient husband. In 1 Peter 3, I will put the scripture on the screen, but yeah, it lets us know that, hey, like, even if your husband is oh my gosh, what is wrong with me today? Even if your husband is disobeying the word, we can win him over by our respectful conduct, our chaste conduct, depending on whichever version you're reading. So there's even a little promise for us that if we do things his way, that our submission, our respect towards our husband can literally, God can use that to soften and change his heart. Now, submission, guys, is not something that is just to be turned on when it comes to decision making. Like, it doesn't work that way where it's like, okay, I'm not submitting, oh, now a decision to make, okay, let's turn on the submission now. Submission is also like about adopting a heart of submission. And when you have the heart of submission, there will be like this underlying like current of respect, reverence, and honor towards your husband. So that means the way that you speak to him, the way that you speak about him, even your thoughts about him is honoring of your husband. So in other words, you're not going to be bashing your husband to your girlfriends or to your mom or whoever else. You're not going to be, disrespectful in the way you're speaking to him. Like, respect and submission, I feel, kind of goes almost hand in hand in a sense. Like, when you truly have that heart of submission to your husband, you're supposed to have this just respect and reverence and honor towards him. And the thing is that when you submit even in the little things, and you are cautious with your words and what you say, and when it comes to just sometimes the simple things where you're like, I don't think this really matters. Like, yeah, he said he kind of wants me to do things this way, but who cares? Like, when you choose to submit in the little things, the bigger things will just kind of become more natural and even easier to submit to. Now, when it comes to respect and honor, you are honoring and respecting not only just him as a person, but the position that God has placed him in. There was a preacher, I forgot his name. I believe it was Tony Evans. I'm pretty sure it was Tony Evans, because it was a couple of years ago that I watched the sermon, and I love the way he explained this. So first of all, I'm going to be completely paraphrasing and like saying it all in my own words, because although I understood the message, what he was saying, it was years ago I watched it, so I can't remember exactly word for word to quote what he said. However, I just know that basically what he was saying was that, let's say some cars come to a four-way stop, right? And they're both going, let's say that both of the cars are going straight. So obviously, you know that usually the rules of the road is that whoever stops first is the person that gets to go. So it doesn't matter if you are driving this big, fancy, luxurious car, or if you're driving this big tractor trailer that has lots of stuff in it that's really important, and you really got to get going. It doesn't really matter about what kind of car you're driving. If that other vehicle that may look like a broke down, good for nothing, about to kick the bucket soon van, or whatever it is, stop first, they get to go first because they have been given the right of way. And basically what that whole analogy was supposed to say was that it doesn't matter if you think that you are wiser or smarter or better or more intelligent or better at this or better at that, or you think you're better at leading. It doesn't really matter about all of that. What matters is that your husband has been given the right of way by God because of the position that he holds as your husband. So guys, that is all I have for you today on this video. If you enjoyed it, or you found it encouraging, or anything good like that, definitely hit the like button. I would love to hear your thoughts on the topic on submission. Why is there anything that you really believe is the reason behind a lot of the hate and a lot of the controversial sort of vibe going on behind the word? Why is it like that? Is there anything that you mentioned that you feel like this is the reason? And what is difficult about submission for you personally? And what are some not so good examples that you've seen of submission where you're like, this is not biblical? I'd love to hear your thoughts below, so go ahead and leave that in the comments. Give this video a like. Stay tuned, because I plan for the next video to talk about some practical ways. I want to share some practical ways with you in how submission looks in my marriage, because I know sometimes just talking about the topic, especially if you're not really married, or you are married but you don't really know much about submission, you're like, okay, I get it, I get the reason, I get what it is, I get what it's not, but what next? How does this look practically? So I'm going to kind of give you guys some ideas and share with you guys some practical things about submission in the next video. So please make sure you stay tuned for that. And eventually I need to talk to you guys about mutual submission and my thoughts on that. I should say convictions on that. So guys, please, if you have not already, subscribe to the channel. Thank you all so very much for watching. Bye-bye.